What is going on, guys? It's Lunatic, coach of the Brookhaven Banettes, and we are back again for Season 6. First of all, I am trying out a new microphone, so I think it's going to sound better. I did a test recording and it sounded pretty clear, but I just have to remember that I have to stay close to the mic. I usually use a headset so I can move around wherever, but I have to stay close to it. Anyways, yes, we're here for Season 6, and you know, out of the champ last season, I'm excited. I did not think I had a very good draft last season. So I definitely I planned out so much how to draft this season. I don't think it on paper it doesn't look like an amazing draft, but it's just because of my draft and play style. I don't draft really just scary looking threats. My playstyle is just kind of different. I run quirky things, but I'm a lot happier with what I drafted this time around than last season. So first of all, before the draft even happened, as champion, my reward for this season was that I was able to franchise Amon for free instead of using any of my points on it. And I know that I was really excited about Halucha coming in clutch and all that, and I did really think about franchising it, but in the end, who I ended up franchising was Empoleon. Empoleon was definitely kind of an MVP last season. I feel he put in a lot of work, and by franchising Empoleon, I felt when I was going through my draft, I didn't have to focus on hazard control nearly as much, because with Empoleon I get a rocker and a defogger, and last season I felt like I focused too much on trying to get a lot of hazard control, and that was just because in the past I've had too little, so I was overcompensating, and I think now I've kind of found like a middle ground. So I was 9th overall pick. We do snake style, so after me it was 3 people that went after me, so 6 picks after that it would snake back to me, and then it would go 8, 16 picks. So I kind of liked my spot. I don't like being in the middle, and I don't like being the wheel. I know some people like being the wheel to pick up cores, really good pairs, but that's not really how I draft, so I'm okay with being close to the edge but not too close. Anyways, I went through so many revisions of my plan for this draft, and then midway through the draft I changed it again. So starting off though, I did stick, my first 3 picks were part of the plan. Actually, my first 4 picks were part of the plan. My first pick, which Carlos deemed the second worst first pick of all the coaches. The worst, according to him, was Hippowdon, which was taken by, I believe, Seth. He first picked Hippowdon. But my first pick was Nihilego. And the reason I picked Nihilego was, one, pretty fast. 103 base speed, it hits hard. And it has that unique rock poison typing, which are 2 typings that I did not have anywhere else in my draft plan. And rock is not an important typing per se, and poison is not the most important. Typically the most important are your fire, water, grass core, dragon, fairy, steel, and then stuff with immunity like ground, dark. But I like having poison types to be able to absorb toxic spikes, and Nihilego is also capable of setting up toxic spikes as well as rocks. So right away I have 2 mons that can set up rocks. I have a T-spike setter. Nihilego does get beast boost, which can be really good. It can be like a late game sweeper where it's scarfed into, I don't know, like sludge wave, and it can just clean up because it keeps getting beast boosts, something like that. I think Nihilego is a really interesting mon. Carlos picked it up last season, and he kind of in in the finals, and if he went Nihilego instead of Megalop, he might have had a chance to win. Because it was scarfed into Sludge Wave, and it could have just cleaned up the rest of my team. He didn't do that. I don't know, because it was a roll on Mimikyu or something like that. I don't know. Anyways, the Ultra Beasts, I'm not a big fan of most Ultra Beasts because typically they have like really good stats in some areas, and then they'll have like half their stats will be good and the other half are garbage. Like if you look at Kartana, it has like 30 special defense, like an Ember opposite from like a Charmander or something. And the Nihilego on the physical end isn't too great, but I figured that was okay. I was fine with it. Celesteela was the mon I was looking at, and it like going through revisions of my plans, but it didn't end up coming because there were 2 steel types that I really wanted, and I didn't want to pick up too many steel types, even though it's a pretty good type to have. So Nihilego, I think it'll put in work. I don't have much else to say on that. I do have stuff to say about my second pick, which I honestly didn't think it would make to me. I thought about first picking this in case its other form got taken and I needed to secure it, but it ended up not, and that is Zygarde 10%, the old Zydog. I wanted to use one of the 2 Zygardes, and that is because last season all of us were ignorant and did not draft either. And something else I wanted drafted was Magearna. So that left the winner of the D-League, which we had, I don't know if I ever mentioned that here, was able to join us in the main league. And he entered as a new coach, and all new coaches are given the opportunity to franchise a Pokemon that went undrafted last season. So he franchised Magearna, which ruined at least 5 people's plans because who didn't want Magearna? My plan did not have Magearna just because I knew it wouldn't make it to me. But the other 2 very powerful picks were Zygarde 50% and Zygarde 10%. Because 1,000 Arrows is a stupid move. However, the reason I went with 10% was because of points. If I picked up Zygarde 50%, that would go into my free points, and then I wouldn't have enough to draft the rest of the things I wanted in my free points. I originally planned to have 4 tier 3s, and then my Mega would be a tier 1. But that does change about halfway through the draft. But I still, it still wouldn't have mattered. I still would not have been able to pick up Zygarde 50. But I am happy with Zydog. It's very fast. 115 speed, I believe, and it has the same attack stat as Zygarde. It's just not as bulky, but it also, it gets Dragon Dance. I guess Coil, which isn't as great on it because it's not as naturally bulky, but it could be useful. But yeah, it's just 1,000 arrow spam, really. And then Outrage, it hits hard. So I knew I had to scoop that up quick. My next pick, these next 2 picks actually, one can argue that they were not chosen at a good time, way too early, way too early. But that's partially because I wasn't sure what order to draft my mons, and that was because I had a couple of alternate plans. If one thing got sniped, I had a backup, but it wasn't a 1-for-1 replacement, it was a 2-for-2 replacement. So for example, I had planned to pick up Crocodile and Blaziken, but if one of those got taken, my backup was to get Incineroar and then one of the many tier 3 fighting types to replace that. It was like that. But these mons I didn't have replacements for, so that's why I picked them up when I did. And so what I picked up 3rd round. Damn, looking at it, at the fact that I picked the 3rd round, it looks much worse now. But my 3rd round pick was Fortress. Fortress, little rocker, spiker, spinner. And this is the last hazard control mon I pick up, because that is enough hazard control. I do not need any more after that. Well, okay, I technically pick up one more hazard control mon, technically. But fortunately, like, focusing, like, that was the last one. Fortress is bulky, steel bug type. It has sturdy, which is real nice. Custom berry is not allowed, because it is unreleased, but that's fine. It gets initiative with like Volt Switch, gets Gyro Ball, and it has good defenses. It does have that, well, good physical defense, really. It does have that times 4 weakness to fire, and I've used Ferrothorn in the past. However, the reason I found myself not liking Ferrothorn, and why I think I might be okay with using Fortress, despite them sharing that weakness, is because Ferrothorn was acting, for me, it was doing 2 different roles, where it was a hazard setter, but it was also the annoying Leech Seed mon. And I felt like those 2 roles, I could not play them into the same Pokemon. So I wanted to separate those roles this time around. I did want a mon that was very focused on hazards, and that is Fortress in this case. And the fact that it sets up hazard and it gets spin as opposed to defog is really nice. And again, with initiative with Volt Switch, I do have quite a bit of initiative that I wasn't aware of until I like re-looked at my team. But yeah, Fortress, hazard mon. That's really why I went for it. And if it got taken, I don't know what I would have done. So next up, this mon, there wasn't a lot of, like, I don't think people were gonna try and get it. However, I was going down the snake. Oh, still do that. When I was coming down the snake, after me, Carlos was the 8th slot, but the snake was coming the other way, so he would pick after me. And we had this conversation about this mon in our group about where to tier it, because apparently it wasn't on the tier list. So we fucked up. But Carlos he seemed to be the only other person aside from me who like was hyping it up a little. Of course not too much, because then it's like obviously gonna draft it. But I picked up on that, and I was like, I think he might want it. And this is a mon that I don't really have a replacement for. So I'm going to take it now in case he wants it. Because I can't risk it passing me, because then he'll have 2 chances to draft it, because the snake would come back. So I picked it up now, and I do really want to use it. And that is Hoopa. Now, Hoopa does to any Pokemon's knockoff. It does not have a good defense stat. It is a Ghost Psychic type. However, it has a crazy high special attack stat. Base 70 speed. It's not the best speed, but it's a usable speed. It also has good special defense. It has a usable attack stat in like 110, I believe. Like, Hoopa, I think I can surprise people with Hoopa and what it can do. Ghost and Psychic Stab, pretty cool. It's a ghost type that I never really looked at before. I like having a ghost type on my team. It's my favorite type, but in league format I have difficulty finding a ghost type I want to add to my team. But Hoopa was definitely this super hard hitting thing that I wanted to try out. So at this point in the draft, I looked at my team, I looked at my draft plan, and I was like, oh shit. Mamoswine 11-0's my team. That didn't make sense. In my head it did, but I don't think it did. Anyways, Mamoswine just destroys every mon on my team. And I was like, oh, I have to change something. Because at this point I wanted to get, well, around this point I wanted to pick up my electric type, which was going to be either Heliolisk or Alolan Raichu. I was leaning more towards Heliolisk because Alolan Raichu would double up on my Psychic types, and I don't really have like Ghost Resist at this point. And then they each had their respective like pair, like they were part of this pair of where I could replace them. Anyways, but because of seeing Mamo destroy me, I was like, alright, I need to change up my plan here. And also my team was kind of a lot of fast mons and a lot of squishy mons. They were not bulky. So like, you know, this is fine. I'll have to drop my tier 1 mega, which I really wanted to use. I'm not going to say what it is, but I had to drop it down to a tier 2 to get those extra points for the adjustment that I was going to make. So the pick that I chose right here was Rotom Wash. Now, you can say, oh, but Mammothswan gets Freeze Dry. Shut up. So Rotom Wash is a bulky water type, which I have Empoleon already, but I mean, if you have 2 bulky water types, how the fuck do you get through a team? Because 1 bulky water type is hard enough. It also is electric type with the Volt Switch. That Volt Switch is nice. It has Levitate, which helps out against ground spam. I actually pick up a couple things. Like with this draft adjustment, I pick up a couple things that go against ground spam, which is very nice. It also has a nice speed stat for my team at 86. Because currently I have Empoleon at like 60, Nihilego 103, Zygarde 10 at 115, Fortress at like 40, then Hoop at like 70. Then with the rest of my mons, they're kind of a little above or a little below. So Rotom Wash actually fits kind of right in the middle. Rotom Wash has good defenses. It's a Rotom form. Like, the 3 good Rotom forms are all very good. Wash, Heat, and Mo. Like, Mo's grass, so a lot of weaknesses, but it's still very good. Rotom Wash, the best because water is stupid typing, but also because it's not signature move, but it's like Rotom form move, Hydro Pump, does not lower your special attack, as opposed to Overheat and Leaf Storm. Rotom Wash also gets Will-O-Wisp, which is very nice against physical attackers. It can be physically defensive, specially defensive, Scarfed, Specs, like it can fill a lot of roles. And I have used actually both the other Rotom forms before. I've just always had a hatred towards Rotom Wash because how the fuck do you kill it? No, of course, like it's just been annoying for me. But you know, I think Rotom Wash and I can we can find a way to get along. Next up, this was more. So okay, everything no. There are 2 more mons that still stick to the original plan. This next one is not one of them. I had, like I mentioned before, I had the plan to pick up Blaziken Crocodile. Crocodile, of course, got taken because people love Crocodile. It's a very good mon. But I wanted that dark typing. And I noticed this mon went undrafted in tier 2. And I felt like it was a super big threat. And I wanted it. There's not really more reasoning to that. And I picked it up now because I don't know if other people were aware that it wasn't drafted. And that's Hydreigon. Hydreigon, it's fucking terrifying. It doubles up my dragons, but who fucking cares? Zygarde 10 is more ground spam. Hydreigon is Draco spam. Like, I'm surprised Hydreigon was not drafted at this point. But I was like, whatever, I'll pick it up. I'll see it. Yeah, that dark typing, I really wanted. It has a 98 speed tier, which is kind of a weird speed tier for me. I wanted something in the 90s, but it's like on the very high end, so it's really close to Nihilego. But it's fine. It's still fast. It's under that base 100, but that I don't care. I have stuff over base 100, so that's fine. But no, Hydreigon, crazy coverage. It can it has physical coverage moves with the useful attack stat. In I think it's 105. Gets stuff like U-turn, superpower. I guess Dragon Rush. No, Hydreigon hits hard on both ends, really fast, and it has coverage. So yeah. Next up, I have the Hydreigon counter. No, not really. I mean, Hydreigon can run fire coverage. But this next mon, I love this mon. I do. And it has my favorite ability in the game. And it's so fucking cute. And I love it when cute things destroy my enemies. It's so funny. And that's Whimsicott. Whimsicott fulfills my grass type and my fairy type. I would have had to do a lot of reconstruction if this was taken because my next pick. I would have figured something out. But Whimsicott was a big part of my draft plan, and that's because it's a side guard counter. I have one side guard, Carlos has the other. I need something for side guard, and for side guard you want a grass type. However, with Whimsicott, not only do I have the grass typing to resist ground, but I have the fairy typing to be immune to dragon. Which is very nice. I do just love Whimsicott. I remember when I drafted it at Colton, I believe it was Colton, he was just like, oh, it's time for subspeed spam. I'm like, ha, you don't know me. You think I'm just gonna run subspeed all the time? Prankster's a beautiful ability. So yeah, if I wanted to Prankster subseed, I could. But there are definitely other things I can do. Whimsicott gets U-turn, it gets Encore, it gets Stab in its Moonblast, it gets Giga Drain, it gets Synthesis, Cotton Guard. Like, there's plenty of things Whimsicott can do. Memento. I'm just gonna use Memento. I might use Memento. But no, I love Whimsicott. And it's another fast mon. Off the top of my head, I don't recall its speed. It's over 110 though. I remember that. But again, another fast mon, U-turner, all that. My next mon is something that, when going through the revisions of my plan, it was on the original revision. I mean, the original draft plan, and then after revising it, like, I'm gonna have to drop it. And then it just didn't come back until the final version. It came back, and I was like, well, guess it was meant to be. I think it's a really cool mon, and I've wanted to try it, and that is Blaziken. Now, if you look in Tier 3, you can see his firefighting starter cousin, Embor. And yes, Embor can hit harder with Reckless. And yes, it's a little bulkier. And yes, it gets Sucker Punch. I don't know where I'm going with this. I just think Blaziken is an amazing mon to be in Tier 4. It has base 80 speed, which is pretty nice. Has 130 attack and 110 special attack. So it can run on both ends. It can run physical and special. And it gets stuff. It gets flamethrower and overheat, along with like Flare Blitz. It gets high jump kick. It gets Brave Bird because the thing's goddamn chicken. Like, it also gets a lot of other coverage moves, which I didn't really know about until I looked it up when I was looking at Blaziken. And I think it's a really cool mon. And, you know, I'm on the hunt for finding a fire type I like, and I was like, I think I can with Blaziken. I don't know what it is, dude. I can't with fire types. I love fire types, but using them, nah. I've used Infernape before and I didn't feel comfortable with it. Blaziken had the same typing, but it's gonna fulfill a different role. But yeah, Blaziken hits hard, decent speed, and I think it's gonna catch some people. I think it will. So my last two picks are my Mega and my Tier 5. And I saved my Tier 5 for last because it was something no one would expect. and I wanted that to be my last pick. Like, ta-da! You know. My Mega, what I ended up doing for my Mega, looking at the stuff in Tier 2. There was stuff like Mega Aggron, Mega Steelix, and again, I don't want to get more Steel types, and they're also like, they're really good rockers, and I don't really care for that at this point. There's Mega Absol, which I didn't want to pick up. I was like, I have enough really fast things, and I have my Dark type, and I don't. With this draft, I don't see Mega Absol fitting. Mega Beedrill I didn't want either. What else was in there? Mega Diancie was still up, but again, really fast things, and I didn't really want it at all. What else was in there? Let me check real quick. Oh, Mega Blastoise was there. Just didn't want to use that. Mega Garchomp. That would be 3 dragons. I'd have 2 ground dragon types. And also speed tier like the same as Hydreigon about. So I was like, I don't need Mega Garchomp. Mega Houndoom was there. If things went wrong, Mega Houndoom would fulfill my Dark Fire type, and I would have built the rest of my team in a different way. Mega Tyranitar I didn't want. The only 2 things that were left at this point were Mega Gallade and Mega Heracross for my options. Mega Gallade was part of my very original draft plan. It was there with the Blaziken. However, again, I thought I have enough of these very fast mons, and Mega Heracross is in that speed tier of 75, which is just decent. It kind of fills in that step for my speed tiers, kind of. I have kind of, they're not great steps, but I have base 70 in Hoopa, and then I have base 80 in Blaziken, so right in between. Mega Heracross also has, Cal told me this, so if it's wrong, blame him. Mega Heracross has the 2nd highest attack stat of any Pokemon, like base attack stat at 185, which is insane. And with Skill Link, I'm popping every Pokemon substitute. Rock Blast, Pin Missile, Bullet Seed. And then I can still hit with Close Combat, Mega Horn. Is there a reason to go Mega Horn over Pin Missile? Because Pin Missile 25. Anyways, I can still hit hard with other moves. With that base of 185 attack, like what's the switching? What is it? Mega Heracross is definitely a mon that I didn't see myself using. I found it one of those weird mons, and I was like, this is a tier 2, but I didn't look into it. But 75 speed, it's a decent speed, insane attack, and then it's fairly bulky, which is another reason I wanted it, because this thing can take a hit from certain mons. Like, if it's not super effective, it can probably live it, and then it'll destroy your life in return. So you have very, very threatening mon with a very interesting design. Heracross, regular Heracross looks super cool. Mega Heracross, I don't know about that. So on to my last mon. This mon, when we were discussing rules, we were trying, as a group, we were deciding whether we were gonna have allow every mon to use Seed Crystals or limit them. We ended up going for limiting, which was disappointing because I wanted this mon to be able to use Z crystals, and of course, you know, I can make it a Z captain, but I really don't want to, because I feel, as much as I'm excited to use it, I don't think it's going to be coming to that many games. And you know, I don't want to miss a hurricane, but I'm gonna have to try. I'm gonna have to try and land. It sounded like I'm saying I'm trying to miss a hurricane. I'm gonna have to try and hit those hurricanes. Yeah, there's no segue. It's Articuno. I saw Articuno, and I was like, that gives me a flying type and an ice type, and those are two things that I was struggling to find to fit my team. This was part of the original plan, and it was gonna be running Flying EMC every week to land those Hurricanes. But I still stuck with it because I think it still has potential. Of course, when it switches into rocks, it loses half its health, but so does Volcarona, so shut the fuck up. It has base 95 speed, which is nice. It has base 100 defense and then like 110 special defense, or maybe higher. Has a good special attack stat. Like, it is a legendary bird, so its stats are fairly high and well-rounded. And, you know, you think of ice type, they're typically specially defensive, except for like Avalugg. But Articuno with base 100 defense and decent HP stat, like it can take a hit on a physical end, not from a rock move, but take a hit. And something I learned, Articuno gets U-turn. So how many things do I have with Volt Turn? One. I have Fortress, Fortamash, Hydreigon, Whimsicott, and Articuno. So quite a bit, more than I thought I would have. I think Articuno has potential. Okay. I know Carlos was shitting on me for that pick. Carlos, you listen here, motherfucker. Articuno is gonna sweep your fucking team. No, Articuno. Oh, I love Carlos. I love you. It's just, you know, Carlos and I have very different draft and play styles. During the draft, he was like, "Alright, your team is like a D plus." Then he was like, "Alright, with this last pick, make it a C minus." And I picked Articuno. He's like, "Nah, it's still a D plus." I was like, "Ah, fuck you, I don't care. This is my draft. This is how I play." Cause yeah, like, I don't know. I have a very interesting way of drafting and playing. Like Carlos picked up like Mega Scizor, Zygarde 50, Tapu Koko. Like, you see those, you're like, holy shit. You look at my team. Nihilego, okay, Zygarde 10. It's not bulky. Hoopa, what the fuck? It's like, you know, it's whatever. People weren't scared of my team last season, and I won. So, fuck off. Alright, sorry, I had to do a little cut there. But yeah, oh, right. So, there were a couple of rule changes, relevant things to talk about. For one, Tapu Lele banned. There were some other tier changes. The big thing that I mentioned before was that we're limiting the amount of Z captains you can have. Well, limiting Z users. And I tried negotiating as hard as I could, but the best I could get was 2. Each team will have 2 Z captains. I really liked having the possibility of everything, but that's just not how it turned out, which is unfortunate, but you know, we have to make do. I've decided already, we kind of have like an off week before week 1 actually starts, so we can, you know, look over our teams and whatever. But I've already decided, day after the draft, I know what I want as my Z captains. I reviewed everything, and I was like, alright. Like, of course, my more defensive mons and my Mega, I'm not gonna have it. I looked at Nihilego, I was like, I don't really feel like that. Zygarde 10, I was like, it can hit hard, but I think I'd rather have a damage boosting item. Rotom Wash, I feel is, a lot of the time, it's a more defensive Pokemon. And if it's offensive, it'll be with like a Scarf or something. I don't want to give it a Z Crystal. Hydreigon, I definitely felt like could be a really good Z Crystal user. But I am going to give my reasoning as to why I didn't choose Hydreigon. Whimsicott, I wanted to use Z Crystal on Whimsicott so bad. Whimsicott has so much utility, and I mentioned Memento earlier because I wanted to use Z Memento, because Z Memento is basically Healing Wish, but with also the effect of Memento. But because we are only limited to 2, I did not want to use one of those Z crystals on a mon that for the most part would be only utility. Like, yeah, I can give it Ferium Z or like Grassium Z for its stabs, but Whimsicott is mostly utility. I wanted to give it to mons that could be offensive with also a chance of using utility Z moves. And then Articuno, again, I just don't think I'll bring it enough to warrant making it as a captain. So my 2 Z captains I've decided are Hoopa and Blaziken. Hoopa and Blaziken are both technically mixed attackers, like they can hit on both ends. And they both have very good move pools. I was scrolling through all the moves they get, and they get so many different coverage moves. I'll reveal this because it was done in the... which league was it? I'm trying to remember. NPA? I think it was the NPA. I feel like it was the NPA. But someone used like Z Sunny Day Blaziken, and what Z Sunny Day does is give a +1 boost to speed. So that was really cool, and shows that, you know, on something like Blaziken you don't have to run offensive Z move. Something like that. And yeah, like I mentioned, Brave Bird, it also gets another, some other cool moves that you wouldn't think of just looking at Blaziken. Hoopa also has a lot of things, and it gets some utility moves. I think, being a psychic type, I think it gets, you know, leaves it open to getting quite a bit of utility moves. And, you know, with both of them, like Hoopa with base 150 special attack with a Z move, like that's gonna hit really fucking hard. And Blaziken with a 130 attack, like that's gonna hit really hard too. So Hydreigon, the thing with Hydreigon is I felt like I would more likely just be giving it damage boosting items or choicing it. A Z crystal would be nice on it, but I feel like, yeah, choicing it or damage boosting items would just be better in most situations, whereas Blaziken and Hoopa, I think they could benefit more from using Z crystals. So that is that. I don't really know what to say about my team. It's not as weak to Mamoswine as my original plan. It was so bad, dude. Mamo literally, it just swept my team. But yeah, we are, I think I mentioned we're gonna have like a little off week before week 1 actually starts. So yeah, the draft happened on the slow draft, and the slow draft ended on the 5th of June. Week 1 didn't start till June 12th. So we have time to look over our teams and whatnot. But I'm gonna start prepping. I'm excited. I'm excited. I moved away from my mic, so I wanted to say it again. And yeah, I don't really have much else to say. People have some very interesting teams. There are some mons that surprisingly went undrafted. Stuff like Tapu Bulu, Clefable, what's the other? Zapdos, Mega Lopunny, Mega Pinsir. Like, people had plans and none of them included those mons, so it's very, very interesting. Also, fun fact someone pointed out, Mega Lopunny was the kill leader last season, and it went undrafted this season, which is just I guess kind of ironic. But yeah, that's all. That's my team. Would I trade anything? I think I would be open to possibly trading. There's some mons that I definitely do not want to trade, but I'm pretty happy with everything I have. I'll see how it feels. The only things on this team that I've used before are Empoleon and Whimsicott, so it's still quite new. But I definitely have used Empoleon a lot. I'm very comfortable with Empoleon. And Whimsicott, Prankster. I love Prankster. But yeah, that's it. I'm gonna stop talking.